Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion.
Hi, welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I am doing Didn't Know It Was a Cover. I'm going to talk about songs that I have in my collection that I'm very surprised to find out are actually a cover song. So I'm talking about songs that aren't necessarily well-known songs, because obviously if it's a well-known song and you hear an album and you hear the song, you go, oh, I've heard that song before. But not particularly well-known songs, and songs that sound like they come from the artist that you are listening to, but you find out later that it actually is not their song. It's a cover song, a song that another artist has done or an outside songwriter has provided. So I've talked about the songs before on my channel, and there's a few ones that I've talked about quite a bit and a few that are quite well known. I'm going to sort of talk about some slightly more maybe lesser known ones, and like I say, these could be songs that you also are going to think to yourself, I didn't know it was a cover. So the ones I'm going to talk about in the show today, initially I didn't know they were cover songs. I thought it was the actual artist that I'm listening to. It was one of their songs. So not talking about those ones that people sort of know about, like, for example, Kiss, Hide Your Heart. Everyone sort of knows about that one. Was covered quite a few times. Initially actually done by Bonnie Tyler, and then it went to Molly Hatchet and Ace Frehley. And of course, Kiss did it as well. Hot Cherry, that was initially a Steelheart song. Daddy Spanos did it. Steve Thompson did it. And of course, probably most well known as a Hardline song. But yeah, a song that got covered, multiple times. Or even Wasp, I Don't Need No Doctor. Ashford and Simpson wrote that song. Ray Charles did it. Humble Pie kind of did the version that Wasp sort of covered. Great version. But yeah, so, and that's a good example, though. I will admit that is a good example. When I first heard I Don't Need No Doctor by Wasp, I thought that was a Wasp song. The same with Scream Until You Like It. So Scream Until You Like It by, well, it's not by Wasp, but it was on the Live in the Raw album. When I heard that, I thought it was a new studio track from Wasp that they'd put onto their live album. But actually, if you saw my last episode, as I talked about, it's actually an Only Child song. Anyway, so I'm not going to talk about those ones, the ones I've talked about before, those well-known ones, slightly more obscure ones. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, first one I want to talk about is a track from King Cobra 3. Now, my copy is a bit banged up, as you can see here. But the song I want to talk about is a song called Mean Street Machine. So it's actually the opening song from the album. And if you look at the credits, you think Phillips at the sea, so David Michael Phillips, he's in the band. At the time, he's actually a co-producer. And so you think, oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's a King Cobra song. But actually, it's a song by a band called the Schoolboys or Schoolboys. And they put out an album, I don't have it, in 1980, just a little 4-track EP. And on that EP is a song called Mean Street Machine. And if you look at the song credits for that, it is actually credited to a guy called David Henseling, who is it's the real name. So his actual name, that's his actual name, but he in King Cobra is known as David Michael Phillips. So what happens is David Henseling, he was in the Schoolboys, and then when he goes to King Cobra, he brings the song Mean Street Machine with him from the Schoolboys that came out in 1980 on just a 4-track EP. So, yeah, and when you listen to that song, it totally sounds like a King Cobra song. But I do highly recommend you can't easily buy the Schoolboys 4-track EP. It's like $150 on Discogs, quite rare. But you can listen to it on YouTube. And I highly recommend, because it's, 1980, but it sounds great. And not surprising it sounds great, because the Schoolboys is pretty much Icon. So this band here, Icon, well, here's the guys here. It's pretty much Icon before they became Icon. So the Schoolboys was David Michael Phillips, at that time known as David Henseling, and he wrote the song Mean Street Machine. But also you had, in the Schoolboys, you also had Dan Wexler on guitar, Tracy Wallach, and Stephen Clifford on vocals. So it's three of the guys from Icon who were originally in the Schoolboys with David Michael Phillips, or as he was known then, David Henseling. So yeah, quite interesting. And also David Michael Phillips then does cover that song again. If you've ever checked out the band, they've got the craziest name, Big Cock. Yes, it's true. That is what they call themselves, Big Cock. He put out, I think it was around 2005, something like that, with the debut album from Big Cock. He has on that album Mean Street Machine. He also has Take It Off, which is on the King Cobra album. He also has that on there. So he covers that song again. And actually, he has I think the drummer from the Schoolboys in that band with him, because the drummer doesn't go into Icon. But yeah, so the drummer from Schoolboys also joins them in the band Big Cock. And I think they put out 3 albums. And like I say, first one I think around 2005. And who's on vocals? Robert Mason, so who's now on Warrant. So yeah, that's another interesting one worth checking out. All right, next one I want to talk about is a track from the second Jafria album, Silk and Steel. So Jafria, of course, named after Greg Jafria, and this is their second album. And the song I want to talk about is I Must Be Dreaming. So there is actually a music video for this, and it really is a great song. I always really like this song. Not very heavy, but it sounds like it would be a Jafria song. But it is actually, and I like the song so much, I even picked this up on 7-inch single. I don't have anything else by this artist. It's actually a Mink DeVille song, and you can see here, I Must Be Dreaming. So, yeah, written by Willie DeVille. But so Willie, I guess, I don't know much about Mink DeVille. Maybe that's the name of the band, and it's Willie DeVille. I actually don't know. But initially it was a Mink DeVille song, and yeah, written by Willie DeVille. And there's a music video for this as well. So if you want to see the Mink DeVille version of I Must Be Dreaming, you can also watch the music video for that. I think this one came out 85, and this one's 86. I'm assuming that, this wasn't a massive hit, and that's what they thought, hey, let's try it, see if we can have some success with it. I'm pretty sure it was the first single, maybe an only single from this album, I'm not too sure. But always really liked that song. And again, one of those ones where when I first heard it, I just thought it was a Jafria song. But no, Mink DeVille, and I Must Be Dreaming was the original artist. Right, next one I want to talk about is a song by a band called Keel. And the track I'm talking about is Rock and Roll Outlaw. Now, this song's actually not on a Keel album, but you can find it on the Dudes soundtrack. And it's actually the opening track on the album. And I think there's a music video for it as well. But originally, it was done by Rose Tattoo. So I've got a 7-inch single of that song. There's Angry Anderson. It's a picture disc, little 7-inch. And yeah, Rock and Roll Outlaw was one of the singles from their debut album, came out in 1978. So always confused me a little bit at first, because Keel have another song called, and it's on one of their albums, not called Rock and Roll Outlaw, but called Rock and Roll Animal. And it's on this album, Keel, The Final Frontier. But then they do a cover of the Rose Tattoo song, Rock and Roll Outlaw. And yeah, to my knowledge, it's only on the Dudes soundtrack. Might be on a single or EP or something, but I've got it on the Dudes soundtrack. All right, next one I want to talk about is kind of interesting one, because it's not a song I particularly like. But when I heard it, I just assumed it was a Bad English song, but it is not. So the song I'm talking about, it's from the debut Bad English album. Great album, some great songs on here, but it's the final song on the album, and it's called Don't Walk Away. So this is actually a song from Outside Songwriters. My understanding is the band demoed it and decided, actually, let's put it on the album. I think it may have even been released as a single. But what's interesting about this song is, yeah, it is a cover song, I suppose. It's not one of their own songs. But at this point, it actually hasn't been released by anybody else. So it did, I think, initially come out only, Bad English were the first band to put that song out. And it's weird too in some ways, isn't it? When you've got a band like this, you've got Jonathan Cain, Neil Schon, great songwriters. You wouldn't think they'd really need outside songwriters, but they maybe decided it had hit potential, so they put it on their album. And that song has also, though, however, been covered by, believe it or not, the Pointer Sisters. So in 1993, the Pointer Sisters did a version, and there's a music video of that song. Tommy Nelson's like just a solo artist, but he was at one time in the band Easy Action, glam sort of band, Easy Action. He released that song as a single, and also a guy called David Foster. So it's one of those songs, outside songwriter. Bad English did a version of it, and then it's been covered by 3 other artists as well, at least. So and it's not a standout, memorable song for me. On this album, I really like the heavier songs. Best of What I Got, Heaven Is a 4-Letter Word, Forget Me Not. They're great songs. Tough Times Don't Last, I like that one. But yeah, interesting that they've got a song on here that's been covered by the Pointer Sisters. Well, also done by the Pointer Sisters. You wouldn't think Bad English and the Pointer Sisters would be doing the same song. And also too, I think when David Foster, and maybe even when the Pointer Sisters do it as well, actually. I'm not overly familiar with the Pointer Sisters version, or any other versions, really. I think, though, they do change the lyrics a little bit. But I think sometimes that does happen with these songs that get covered. All right, next song I want to talk about is a song from Adam Bomb's debut album, Fatal Attraction. And the song I want to talk about is the song Russian Roulette. One of my favorite songs from this album. Not a big fan of this album, but I do really like that song, Russian Roulette. And so that's the original version of the song. But, and this is a little bit obscure, if you happen to have the Aaron's Rod Illusions Cool album, then you will also be able to hear a cover of that song, Russian Roulette, and it's the last track on side 1. And it's written by Adam Bomb, but also written by a guy called Rick Kiefer, and he actually is credited as doing additional percussion on this album as well. So maybe he was friends with the band, brought the song over to them for them to do, because he also does, the guy, Rick Kiefer, does also have another songwriting credit on this album as well for the song Mirage. But yeah, and this is actually a good album too, worth checking out. But yeah, Russian Roulette, great song. They're both the good versions. I probably prefer the Adam Bomb version, the original version. But yeah, there we go. So if you've maybe only heard this album, you might, and again, one of those ones, if you heard this, you would just probably think it's an Aaron's Rod song, but it's actually originally a Adam Bomb song. The next one I want to talk about is one some people who are watching this channel or watching this episode right now may know about this one. So see if you can guess. The album I'm talking about is Tesla, their debut album, Mechanical Resonance. And I think pretty much all these songs the band wrote themselves on this album, except for one. And the song is Little Suzie. And again, it's a great example of, you'd hear this song and just think, yeah, it's another Tesla song. But actually, it is not. It is a cover song. So the song originally was actually called Little Susie's, I've got the 7-inch single here, Little Susie's on the Up. So not just Little Suzie, it's Little Susie's on the Up by a band called PhD, which I think is the initials of the members of the band. But I'm not overly familiar with this band, PhD, a UK band, and they did obviously release it as a single. It's on their, I think it's on their debut album, 1981. And yeah, interesting. I don't know how it happened. Tesla found out about the song, thought, well, maybe, I don't know, the producer told them about it. I don't know, but they covered it. And actually, they also, I think, released it as a single as well. It's a good song, but I think it's obviously a song that's really attached to Tesla. A lot more people know it as a Tesla song than a PhD song, who were the original writers of the song. All right, next one I want to talk about is a really interesting one, because I'm going to go to the original album that has been an album that a lot of artists have covered, or at least there's been songs of this album that a lot of artists have covered. So the band I'm talking about is RPM, and the guy that does most of the songwriting is a guy called Bob Johnson. And there's a song on here called Rendezvous. Rendezvous is a song that was covered by Tigers of Pantang on The Cage. And if you heard it, you just think it sounds like a Tigers of Pantang song. Really, yes, they do get a little bit more commercial on this album, but yeah, great song. Opens up the album, and RPM also did release the song in 1980, or released this album in 1982, and Tigers of Pantang released this album in 1982. And RPM also released Rendezvous as a single as well. But that is not all. RPM also have a song on here called 2+2. And you can find a version of that song on the Vanzant album from 1984. Opens up side 2, 2+2. But that is not all. Yes, there's more. There's a track on here. It's a really good song, probably one of my favorite songs off this album, called Legend Never Dies. And I don't have a version of the cover version, but Blackfoot on their Vertical Smiles album also do a version of A Legend Never Dies. So this album has 3 cover songs, or has 3 songs on it that have been covered by some fairly well-known artists. Yet I would say RPM, not really a well-known band. I think they put out like 3 or 4 albums in the 80s. This one, like I say, 82. And this is the only one of theirs I got. And I pretty much found this based on all these songs that other bands I had in my collection had covered. So, yeah, just a bit of an unknown sort of band that actually, though, have got some songs that some fairly well-known bands, Blackfoot, Tigers of Pantang, Vanzant, fairly well-known bands have actually used some of their songs from this album on their own albums. All right, now talking of Vanzant, this album here has a song on it called Heart to the Flame. Now, this is written by an outside songwriters, but you can also find that song was covered later on by Jeff Paris on Wired Up, and you can find it, Heart to the Flame, track 3 on side 2. It's kind of surprising. Again, Jeff Paris is an actual songwriter himself, writes for other artists, but using outside songwriter song for that album. And again, you'd hear that song, you just think it was a Jeff Paris song. Or likewise, when you hear the song, the Vanzant song, you wouldn't necessarily know that it wasn't a Vanzant song. So I thought that was interesting too, that just been talking about Vanzant and how it linked to RPM, and then they also have a song that then is covered by another artist. Although again, a little bit different because they didn't write the song; it's an outside songwriter. They've taken that song, used it on their album, and then I guess in a way, Jeff Paris maybe has done the same thing. Right, last one I want to talk about is perhaps doesn't quite fit the theme of the show, but I thought it was an interesting one, so I'm going to talk about it and show it. This is a band called the Rossington Band, and basically that is you've got Dale Rossington on vocals, so female fronted vocals, and Gary Rossington. But what's interesting about this album, it has a song on it called Welcome Me Home. That is written by Neil Schon, Jonathan Cain, and Jimmy Barnes. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, because I know that Jimmy Barnes worked a lot with Jonathan Cain and Neil Schon on his Freight Train Heart album. I thought, oh, maybe that song's on here. but it isn't. So it's actually not on this album. So to my knowledge, the song Welcome Me Home is actually only on this album. And I'm guessing maybe it was a song that they wrote for Freight Train Heart, and then it didn't make the album. And yeah, Rossington Band have picked it up and used it. Not a bad song. Of course, it's Neil Schon, Jonathan Cain, Jimmy Barnes, you know. So yeah, it's pretty good. This is, you know, not particularly heavy album, but rock, you know, even a little bit southern rock, of course. But yeah, interesting that you know, songwriting credits for Jimmy Barnes and Neil Schon and Jonathan Cain. And to my knowledge, if you want to hear that song, this is the only album you can find it on. Okay, so that's going to do it for today. Just some slightly obscure, maybe lesser known cover songs that you may not have realized actually were cover songs. Now, what I'm going to do is some of the songs, or most of the songs I've talked about, I'll put on a playlist on YouTube, so you can go and hear the original version and then the cover version of that song. All right, if you enjoy this type of content, make sure you hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button so you can be aware of future episodes that I'm put out. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. All right, see ya.